Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Jessica Morgan with TechCast 24/7, and we've got a heavy one to start with. So listen. Imagine finding out someone you trusted took your Facebook photos, fed them into an AI site, and boom, created sexually explicit images and videos of you. Horrifying. Right? That's exactly what happened to a group of women in Minneapolis last summer. They discovered a male friend had been using a service called DeepSwap to nudify their faces. And not just theirs, but more than 80 women across the Twin Cities. Now here's the kicker. Because the victims weren't minors and the man didn't distribute the content, there was, apparently, no clear crime. Molly Kelly, one of the women and a law student, put it bluntly. He did not break any laws that we're aware of. That gap has left these women scrambling for legal recourse and pushed them to team up with State Senator Erin May Quaid on a bill aimed at blocking nudify services in Minnesota. The bill would levy steep fines on companies that enable non-consensual explicit deepfakes. Think $500,000 per generated deepfake in the state. Big number. But beyond the legal puzzle, the harm is very real. Jessica Gistelis described panic attacks triggered by something as simple as a camera click, because that sound throws her back to seeing manufactured images of herself. The emotional and identity damage is huge. Experts like Marianne Franks compare this to revenge porn. Victims feel like they don't own their bodies anymore. And it's not some advanced hacker-only tool. Nudify services have made deepfakes shockingly accessible. 10 years ago, you needed AI chops. Now, a Facebook photo and an internet connection will do. Many of these services hide behind playful marketing or call themselves face-swapping apps, while actually being porn-focused. Enforcement? Unclear. Disclaimers about consent? Often meaningless without oversight. The site used in this case, DeepSwap, is murky. Mixed company locations, shifting legal claims, and almost no transparent leadership info. That kind of opacity makes accountability harder. With federal AI pushes prioritizing industry growth, advocates worry state-level protections could be undercut. So quick takeaway, technology moved faster than the law, victims are bearing the cost, and policymakers are scrambling. We'll keep watching this story as Minnesota's proposed law moves through the halls, and as more people realize how easily their images can be weaponized. Okay, switching gears. This next piece, whew, it's big. OpenAI's been on a roll and, well, the spending is astronomical. Sam Altman and his team keep saying scaling up is the name of the game, and investors seem to agree, at least for now. Nvidia just agreed to invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI, Oracle's already deep in with its Stargate program, and CoreWeave and Broadcom are signing multi-billion-dollar deals to supply infrastructure. These are not small bets. Now, you might be thinking, great, more compute, better AI. And yes, scaling can accelerate research. But there are red flags. Analysts warn we might be seeing a repeat of vendor financing dynamics that inflated bubbles in the past. If the companies that make the chips are also the ones financing the customers who buy those chips, are we creating a self-referential ecosystem that won't hold up if growth slows? That's the worry. OpenAI itself acknowledges it's willing to run losses to prioritize growth. CFO Sarah Fryer says technology booms need bold infrastructure bets. Altman argues this is what it takes to deliver advanced AI, but the numbers are staggering. Some reports estimate global demand for compute could reach 200 gigawatts by 2030, and building enough data centers could cost about $500 billion a year. Bain says there's a revenue gap, trillions short, if everyone expects to recoup those costs. Investors are uneasy. Bespoke called the Nvidia deal a, quote, troubling signal about how self-referential the space has become. Peter Bookvar even said the late 1990s dot-com echoes are loud. The core point, for this to work without massive losses, these companies have to generate enormous revenues, fast. On the flip side, proponents argue the internet's early overbuilding led to massive long-term gains. Fryer reminded us of that. Sometimes you build big, and the demand follows. OpenAI isn't just buying hardware. It's locking in partnerships, equity stakes, and long-term commitments. But that also ties its fate tightly to a small group of suppliers. So, what to watch? Keep an eye on whether AI revenue can actually scale to meet these infrastructure bills, and whether regulatory scrutiny or market shocks expose fragilities. This is one of those once-in-a-generation tech moments. Exciting, ambitious, and, yes, full of risk. All right, last story for this round, and it's a doozy about policy and platforms. Google, and specifically YouTube, has been repositioning itself quietly toward a stronger emphasis on free expression. This week, a letter from Alphabet's lawyer to Congress confirmed that YouTube will allow accounts previously banned for COVID-19 and 2020 election misinformation to apply for reinstatement. Yeah, you heard that right. Channels that were once permanently barred could come back, at least under a pilot program. Now, remember when Google leaned heavily into fact-checking, adding claim review tags, linking to trusted sources, and slapping information panels on videos? That was a big part of their playbook in 2016 through the pandemic years. But over time, policy shifts, staffing cuts to trust and safety teams, and a corporate pivot have chipped away at that approach. Alphabet's letter frames this as a defense of free expression. It says the company won't bow to political pressure, and that protecting open debate sometimes means letting controversial content remain. There are two sides to this. Advocates of stronger moderation worry this rollback could let misinformation spread unchecked, especially with fewer fact-checking tools integrated into search and YouTube. Critics point to earlier examples, misinformation that went viral faster than platforms could fact-check it, and the consequences that followed. On the other hand, defenders argue that removing content can unintentionally curb legitimate debate, and that lifetime bans were too blunt an instrument. Alphabet's change also comes against a backdrop of regulatory pressure and legal fights. The company recently lost antitrust cases and is negotiating other high-profile settlements. So there's a lot on the line. And then there's the operational part. YouTube's help pages still show some information panels and publisher context boxes, but Alphabet's legal letter says the company will pull back on integrating fact-checking into its codebase. So what does this mean for creators and viewers? Expect more content testing the boundaries of platform rules, and expect debates about where moderation ends and censorship begins to intensify. For regulators, it's a signal that tech giants are recalibrating how they balance safety and expression, sometimes in surprising ways. We'll be watching how the pilot plays out, whether reinstated channels actually return, and how advertisers and regulators react. This is a moment that will shape how we think about online speech for years to come.